settled. It's all excitement, right? It's just excitement.
Oh my gosh.
We basically love outdoors.
Yeah.
So we bring outdoors inside, as you can see by this room, which has lots of plants.
And we love nature and we love animals. We get to see all over here.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
So we have all our plants, most of our plants are in here, and yeah. And we live in a small little house because we don't like to consume too much.
We're minimalist. We're minimalist,
Yeah.
you know. Less we consume, the better.
Yeah,
We have only one tiny little Fiat, two-door, okay, for two of us. And we have a very small house, and we want to keep it that way. There is no need to have more than what we need.
Yeah. Right.
I wish everybody would be like that.
So our house is more like a little cabin.
Right, exactly.
It is cozy. This
Here,
is our
you
little
can see.
living room here.
Here, Kendra, here, these are the pictures of all our daughters and sons' pets, you know, and they all died on our lap, you know, and we kept them till the very last day of their life, you know, and they're all rescued, by the way. Do not believe in animal, what do you call it? And this is Donna's mother right there, and she is a woman of the land, you know, as you can see, the land around her, you know, just amazing spirit, you know, feisty, straightforward, and she set an example for us how to live, you know, enjoy life and live without fear, you know, and she did that to the rest of all of her life, you know, practice with her two knees replaced. She took us, you know, when we got married, Donna and I, in the northern tip of California on the coastline, Mendocino, and she of course took her little puppy. She rescued everything from all over. She could not fly because of the puppy. She had to drive when her knees are barely there in a van. She went all the way over there, and she then took the group for some hiking and all that. That is the strength and the resilience she had, and she showed us how to be strong, how to live well, how especially she was an animal lover. She rescued all the animals in the block all over. So
Pretty much there's just lots of animals on these walls in lots of nature. So it reflects what we value.
And that's what we value with Pax Natura too. You know, Pax Natura is all into that peace with nature. You know, that's the only way to sustain ourselves, sustain the humankind. You know, we all live into this world together, and that we often forget. You know, especially the countries those who are fighting wars. You know,
These basically are two rooms that we spend most of our time in. Kitchen, where life basically happens, and sharing all the food together. And again, we have these walls that are full of lots of different stories are on these walls, along with, you can see nature.
And right behind you on nature, there's Donna's painting, you know. Donna's painting on the sunflower.
Okay, yeah.
Donna's painting, yeah. She
Quite
did that.
my painting, but yes. I did that painting, but...
Right, that's that. Yeah. And that's again nature, sunflower, you know, opening up to the sun. In the same planet Earth, okay? And here is my picture with my few students. Early days, you know, maybe 40 years ago, I went around the world on an ocean liner. It was a voyage around the world, you know, to teach classes of the world. You know, I was selected. I was one of 19 faculty from the country, United States and Canada, and there were about 500 students. That's the picture, and that was the Red Sea, our big boat, like a ship, ocean liner. It crossed, you know, that Red Sea. This is the second time in history that as it crossed the Red Sea, that boat, Red Sea parted behind us, you know. So only it happened twice in history. The first time, of course, when Moses did that, Moses, and this time it's with us. And here is my favorite, my guru, my everything in life, you know, Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore, the famous poet, inspiring poet, believed in nature, believed in holistic philosophy, and he was a world guru, you know. I mean, he revolutionized the natural way of thinking, holistic way of thinking at that time, just before the First World War, when all the countries were getting ready to fight with each other. he came up with this idea that we're all together and nature is the center. And he got the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913, and that's a portrait of him. And look at this thing. That's the school I went to. Classes are held under the tree, and you get to see the classroom, quote unquote, under the tree. We all sit together, women, girls and boys together, and that's one of the earliest schools where co-educational facility or system that took place in the early days, That was about at the beginning of the 20th century, late 19th century, and at the time, most schools, in fact all schools all over the world, were not co-educational. And he started with boys and girls together, and some of the boys were famous, some of the girls were famous. One of them became later the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy, that was India, that is India still. And some of the boys ended up getting Nobel Prize, like Tagore too, from there. That little being learning things under the trees, that's how it was in the corner, so that's how it is. So these are the things that mean a lot to us. Donna, would you like to add anything to something you can think of? Yeah.
We go back there every year, and the school and and it's not just lower school, high school, it also has a university connected with it.
Yeah.
And it has produced, like Deen said, Nobel laureates out of that place. And it is an amazing place because you think, oh, children, what are they learning? They're just running around and being in nature and under the trees. But there was a lot of learning happening, and still is.
Some of the most greatest minds in the world, they came all over there to teach the kids, because they were inspired by Tagore, the best minds in the world, they came all there. And
Tagore has a famous poem about learning, and maybe you can name the title, I can't recall the title, but it's basically, we learn not by shoving information into, like you would a parrot, shoving the information into the parrot and then the parrot replies. All of that. That's
and
really not learning at all.
And eventually the parrot dies, but it's too stuffed inside. It cannot say anything, That's what's happening to our kids.
It kills the spirit of the parrot.
Right, and kills the parrot too, That's what's happening. It kills civilization, kills the folks, those who are as children being fed like that and stuff.
So basically Tagore was trying to say that that is not the way of education. It's to just cram knowledge down one's throat. And then we just mimic it and repeat it back.
Education for Tagore has to be playful, So Tagore emphasized 4 or 5 elements from early childhood on that should be part of the education for eventual human flourishing. What are they? It has to be curiosity, imagination, empathy, critical reasoning, and most importantly, a sense of wonder, to wake up to the bigger world and see the connection, So those things need to be installed and instilled early on in a child's education, and not by stuffing them stuff and not let them do these other things, So all that thing has to be done in a playful fashion, and that's why he had the classes held all outdoor in nature, so they grow up appreciating nature. Even today, do you know, Kendra, for example, when you go to bed, our windows in bedroom are wide open and no blinds. Even in the winter, we have no blinds. We have the window open so that outside beautiful air and cold air too, it comes, but also along with that, the murmur of the nature, the rain, the snow, or autumn time, the crickets, we can hear their song, and also we get to see the moonlight falling inside the room on our bed and all that, sometimes on Donna's face, and that lights up the place. That's how we grew up, and we still do it that way. We do not have the blinds on when we go to bed. We try to be tuned with nature even when we're asleep. That's how it is. I do not believe in any religion, we don't believe in rituals and meaningless, mindless ceremony. We believe in celebration, but not mindless rituals that holds us, that keeps a lid on us. We are not into religion, but I empathize a lot with one religion and one guru of that religion, that's Buddha. And Donna is a practicing Buddhist, but also Donna is very open-minded, and of course she doesn't believe in God, we're not theists in that sense, but we believe in the ultimate, whatever that is, that's abstract of course. And Buddha's philosophy is in fact a process of what we call moral psychology, that's how he taught us to look at ourselves inside, to wake up and be connected, be mindful, and find our own path. That's what he believed in. And he said that that's how, through some of the Buddhist doctrine, one of them called it the middle path, you get to understand how things are there. We're all into it together, and we cannot flourish unless others flourish. So he was not just into love, he was into what we call karuna, meaning compassion. Love is between humans mostly, and at times maybe towards animals, but compassion means you have to project yourself to them, so it's not sympathy, but it's empathy. That's what he wants us to believe in and practice. And through that we get to see this holistic connection with nature, with people, and with everything around, And that's Buddha's contribution 2,600 years ago, and that's what he gave. And even today, we haven't been able, to fully emulate that, and we're still struggling, but he gave us the way, So, but we do not believe in Buddha in any blind way, as if he's some sort of god or some cult figure or something, The philosophy, and Buddha himself said that find your own path and be mindful, do not be a follower, So that's exactly his idea. That's why we have this Buddha's picture here, Buddha statue, and under the nature. It's a 2-volume encyclopedia of global justice, And I specialize in international law, political philosophy, and normative jurisprudence, with a focus on justice, with global issues, human rights, democracy, the intersectionality of all that, to focus on global justice. And this encyclopedia of global justice is 1 volume. 2 volumes of global justice there, and with over 1,200 entries, and I'm the editor-in-chief of this volume, of this project, This is volume 2, there's the volume 1 right there, and that is a monumental achievement, why? Because global justice is what we need today in the world. Not just the human rights understood in the colonial Western sense that everybody, the rest of the world has to comply to that and live up to it, but it has to be understood in their own ways. So human rights has to be understood in a different way. For that, I have worked on that to show human rights is basically about capability, of human welfare, the human potential, and that is cross-cultural. And global justice is different from national justice, which is contractual, reciprocal, but so often usually reciprocity means between equals, and the global is an unequal place. The world is an unequal place, so we cannot think of national justice in terms of reciprocity. It has to be in terms of something else, where we have to understand the inequality in the world. The reciprocity doesn't let you do that. It expects that we're all the same,
We came at different times, and Deen came first to Pax. So you start, Deen, and share that, how you got involved with Pax.
We got involved because of my friendship and intimacy with Randall, because we have been friends from day one here. And I always had the highest respect for Randall because of his philosophy, lifestyle, values, and what he's doing for the global cause in bringing the world to sanity and to put it to a higher plane, with his projects and everything. And so naturally that led to our being together, and then Randall invited me to be a member of the trustee board of trustees. And that's how I got in it. And since then, of course, it's going on like this, I mean, we value Randall, and we share the same philosophy. And so we see each other for the same, that we are doing the same, promoting the same cause, in different ways, And so it's this mutual appreciation, understanding, respect that led us together.
And then I got involved. It's been a little over a decade, I suppose, since I've been with Pax Natura on the board. But prior to that, I would come to all the meetings because Deen just invited me. And that's where I started to learn about Pax, what it does. And at that time, they were involved in carbon trading, and that was kind of technical, and I was trying to understand exactly what that was. It took me, I still don't know exactly all of that stuff, but then it morphed, it moved as starting to do work in Mexico and all of that, and I became more interested and more involved in it. So it's been over about a decade, but yeah, it was very natural. I just would go to the meetings, and then finally, yeah, I learned enough, and then Randall invited me, and I said, oh, to be on the board, and I said, okay, I can do that.
Yeah. But the focus initially was on Costa Rica at that time.
That's right.
And we have been to Costa Rica together and several times, and it's an amazing country and what Costa Rica is doing, you know, to show the rest of the world in the southern hemisphere, showing the northern countries, those were into consumption and everything that's destructive to the environment, you know, and
Well, helps
warming.
with climate change.
Climate change in Costa Rica is an amazing country, and it's going to be carbon neutral. Maybe already it is, you know, as a country, and its rainforest, what it's doing when it comes to carbon sequestration, you know. And so that's how it started, and we thought, wow, that's a natural place. Randall did so much, of course, to promote their cause. From there, natural transition was to Mexico, you know. But in the meantime, also, we got a chance to go together with the trustee and, of course, with Randall, to Cuba. And Cuba is another place, you know, where, you know, it has been neglected by the United States. But at the time, thanks to President Obama, it opened up to Cuba. And Cuba was wondering what to do with it. All these various ports and all these cruise ships coming, and they can be destructive to the environment. And yet they needed the money and the tourism. And so they were in a dilemma. And that's where they invited us. We went there. We had a great time together with meeting some of the leaders over there. They heard from us, we learned from them, you know. So every way it has been a very good thing for a long time, you know.
I was a person that they could connect with and learn from. And again, it's like a two-way street. I always feel like I'm learning from the other person. So the inspiration came mostly because I love to be around people, and I find that there are so many people that are unhappy and not well, either physically or mentally, and don't quite know why they are, or they just need another person to help them kind of come out of that and get a better sense of that well-being. And so the inspiration was, yeah, being connected with people, and I've had my own journey through getting healthier and having a sense of whole beingness, I guess you could say, well-beingness. And so, yeah, that inspired me.
She's, in fact, I find that she's truly a cosmopolitan person, you know, and it's rather rare to find that person in Utah, you know. So I just grabbed her, you know. truly cosmopolitan, because with her I feel like that I'm in the global world, you know, without barriers, you know, and she has that philosophy, you know. And that connects very well with the Pax Natura philosophy. And so she's a natural addition, you know, person for this board. Well, it started very early because of the elementary school and the high school I went to in the rural part of Bengal in India. And it was founded by Rabindranath Tagore, you know, that famous poet, philosopher, artist, and a true genius in a multifaceted way. And guess what? Like you too, you know, he didn't believe in college and formal degrees, and yet he tried to learn things on his own. He didn't have a degree of any sort. Either he didn't go to school, didn't have a high school degree, even forget about a college degree. And he was a leader at the time in the world to show a new path, and the Nobel Prize came to him on his own. He didn't go for it or ask for it, you know. They were so impressed. Forgot to tell you one thing though. That's the place in rural Bengal, that area where, guess what? It's a land of, they call genius, you know. There's a book called The Land of Genius that focuses on that part of the world. In the tiny part, Bengal is a tiny place compared to the state of Utah, which is about maybe 5 times larger than Bengal. It has 6 Nobel laureates, you know, in that area, you know. And from that part of the world to recognize all over the world with Nobel Prize, that's truly remarkable. And so many of them could have gotten Nobel Prize. They did not, because it happened to be that part of the world, like Bose, you know, Shutten Bose, the famous scientist who gave us, you know, that idea, the God particle boson, that's named after his last name, you know. He was part of that institute where I went to. He'd be coming to our home quite often. So I grew up with that sort of a philosophy and idea, and with that mindset that there is a bigger world out there, and we all have to be part of that, you know. We cannot be just confined to our little place. And Tagore's philosophy was a philosophy that called for getting out. Don't be homebound and be a vagabond, not a vagabond, but perhaps a wanderer, you know. That's his wandering attitude, you know. And so I, from early on, believed in the idea of peace, non-violence, which were the ingredients, central ideas of that place, along with this inspiration and exuberance, you know. And I was globally minded, so even though I grew up in a small place, you know, I had that thing in me, you know, thanks to Tagore. And that led me, you know, to go to different places, learn from different places, get degrees and all that, you know. And I'm still doing that, and naturally, so therefore my transition to global justice was just the natural way to progress in that area in my academic studies, because of course, global justice is the most important thing in today's world, you know, justice, so that we can understand how people can have human rights in their own ways rather than being dictated by other countries on their terms, you know, and how to have that in an equitable fashion. So rights, human rights, they are for equality, but besides equality we need empathy. Not equality, we need equity. That's justice. Without equity, equality could be uneven, you know. Some are more equal than others, which is how this world is, you know. So combine this equity and equality is to combine human rights with justice, you know, and that's global justice. That's what I mean.
Going back to this interconnection with everything, that we are connected to everything, even if we're not aware of it, we are. And everything that we do affects everything else. And it affects every living thing. And if we don't understand that, we can get off balance. And our internal self can get off balance, and as well as our external self, our bodies, our mind. So yeah, the Buddhism brings this interconnected, this understanding that we all are connected and our actions are always important. Everything that we do affects something. It makes a ripple, good, bad, whatever it is. And that is connected to everyone's well-being. Because when you are well, I am well, and vice versa. When I am well, you are well. And having that understanding can at least start you into that path of wellness. So Buddhism has done that. So it's everything to me, and it shapes my my work in helping others be well and healthy. Yeah, it's always in the forefront. And at the same time, knowing that nothing lasts forever. Everything is always changing, moment to moment. There's flux. And so when you have that, and that's Buddhism too, that's one of the core tenets of Buddhism, or the core understandings of Buddhism, is that Buddha always said that everything changes. and it's changing moment to moment. And when we can realize that, we're not hanging on to it like we have to have it. Greed it loosens up, because we all have this greed, and greed breeds unhealthiness. So when we're not greedy, we're less. When we're not greedy, we're more healthy. And so it shapes everything. Just experiencing the wind, like we've had a lot of wind today, and I work with children, and so the children are out in the school, and they get a lot of outdoor education in our school. And so it's been very windy, and you can just see how their bodies react to the wind, and they're running around and just really soaking it in. And that's the way it should be. And we don't have to explain to them, oh, this is, they already know. And so that's part of being in nature, just being in it, just like that, just like a child is. And you're a healthier human being for it.
We live in a culture of rampant capitalism, and also it's a war economy. And given that it has a ingrained, built-in mechanism of division, that we are always live in a divided world, us versus them, that idea. And when that happens, that we are supposed to go for consumption regardless of our idea of the consequences of it. And a consumptive materialistic culture, when you don't have appreciation for nature, just diminishes us. So it's a short-term goal for our own desire and satisfaction of desire, forgetting the long-term goal of how we can live together as a collective body of human beings in a natural world, And so that leads to not only mental and physical degradation, we become who we are not, and we are constantly outwardly oriented, don't look at inside to find out what it's doing to us. And eventually when that happens, that leads to a situation where eventually humans will find out they're in a situation, hopefully maybe before it's too late, that they are at a turning point when if they go furthermore into that direction, there is no turning back, And that's precisely why we need to make sure that there should be this awareness of being in the world together, and we cannot go for this perpetuate mindless consumption and exploitation. And nature is a prime source of our exploitation, and that brings us closer together. We have to have the awareness that direction we're going, is not leading us to our own greater good, So it has to come from inside, For that, of course, there are so many ways we can get to that, Leadership, proper mentorship, proper education, proper lifestyle and all that, to get to see that we have to turn the trend around, And that leads to an awareness for greater good, It doesn't happen simply by continuing our life as the way it is, There has to be some direction that is different from how we are going, So I can, of course, go into many of the specific issues and into theories and into laws, domestic and international laws and all that. I don't want to get into that, but basically the idea is that all of those details, though, lead to this idea that it has to be us who has to wake up, to understand the situation and face it. And has to be a regeneration of the understanding, And there are so many ways it can happen, though, but that's the basis. That's the direction we must go.
So first you have to slow down, and then you can put yourself out into the natural world. Get rid of so much artificial stuff around you, right? So get out of buildings and get outside, and then start slowing down, and you can even do simple walking. You've heard of walking meditation, right? It doesn't have to be that structured, but you can actually just slow down in your movements. And you can do it outside. And really that slowing down tunes you in a little bit more with all of your senses to what's happening around you. So slowing down is very important. And then making a conscious choice that I'm going to see, not just with, I'm going to feel, I'm going to use all of my senses right now and just absorb it. So one could simply go out into some natural area and just sit down. You don't have to close your eyes. You just sit down and you wait. And that's part of the slowing down. Wait and see what comes to you. Wait and see what you feel. What do you hear? And don't start tweaking and thinking about what you hear and what you see. Just let it just wash over you. So that is one way that you can use the natural world for your own well-being. And again, it's not just your own well-being, because once you are doing it for yourself, it flows over to someone else. It's how you relate to someone else. So when you're having a conversation, when you do this, just this one little simple practice of just being in nature and opening all your 5 senses and connecting with the senses of the natural world, and just taking it in and not thinking too much about it, you do that again and again and again and again, that you also start to be that. You start to slow down. And so you're able to relate with someone a whole lot easier, because you're not trying to make something happen. You're truly with that individual 100%, with how they are and who they are, all of that. So the natural world is a great teacher that way, and can help us be healthier.
In our fast life, we're always externally oriented, but not in the right way. We don't know how to look inside. We don't understand the difference between solitude and loneliness. We believe that, if we don't have something going for us around, we think that we are lonely, Solitude is very healthy, to look back and understand ourselves. That's how we connect with people. But if we're constantly running around and living a fast life and consumptive life, then we constantly look for stimulation outside, that makes us externally oriented in the wrong way, So that leads to what Donna has been saying, that's how we can slow down, be more meditative, and be more inwardly oriented, and appreciate solitude. And that opens up a new world, and that's where you connect with people.
And it does help you from feeling like you have to be always doing and looking. And it's because we suffer from this having too much stimulus, too much of, everything's available in our modern world, in our where we live right here, and in this kind of economic class that we come out of. We have so much stuff, so many gadgets, so much of everything, that we're overloaded with stimulus. And we all know this. And so we have to make that conscious choice. Let's just put it all down for a little while, and let's slow down. And we can see the world differently, and actually you'll be more creative that way. You'll be a happier individual, and you'll know how to make those social connections better. Where we're also, as Deen said, very lonely in our world. And this is one way we can kind of help not being so lonely, is because we can learn to really connect with the individual.
There is a phrase called the poverty of affluence, poverty of affluence. What affluence is doing to us, the more we go for possession, materialism, and being outwardly oriented, the more bankrupt we're getting inside, And that's just poverty, spiritual poverty, mental poverty, and real deprivation of our spirit. And when we're that way, though, then we are lost. And if we are lost, then we cannot connect with the outside. We see the outside simply in terms of consumption, That's not the healthy way to do it, Well, Pax Natura as an organization is a guiding light, that it gives directions, to the good things happening that's nature-oriented. In countries that are often overlooked, we believe that all should happen, everything should happen in the world's rich and powerful countries, in the Western world and in the Northern Hemisphere. We forget that we can learn so much from the Southern Hemisphere, what they're doing with their limited resources by being nature-oriented and not and resisting the onslaught of this consumerism and capitalism and production and commercialization that is taking over all over the world, and what damage it's doing to the rest of the world, especially in the global south, And we get rich, and that's where the poverty or affluence comes in. You don't understand that we are getting rich, but we're undermining ourselves by undermining the rest of the world. And so therefore, with Pax Natura, its unique role is to show to the world, especially the affluent world, that look what the countries, like Costa Rica, like Mexico, what they're doing, their culture, their tradition, their land, their way of cultivation, their way of carbon sequestration, saving rainforest and be carbon neutral, and how that can save the northern world too, that is so much into consumption and self-depletion, because resources are not infinite, unlimited. We're depleting ourselves. And that's where Pax Natura comes in. It's not that it is an institution that has all these specific ways of advising to the world, but it is guiding the good things happening and emerging out of some crucial countries in the global south to show how it can be a guiding light for the rest of the world. That's where Pax Natura is, and that is a very constructive way to do it, what Pax is doing, than simply to go on giving lectures or trying to tell people you cannot do this, cannot do that, and all that, because people would not listen, They have to be convinced, they have to see the way, and Pax is the conduit, it's doing that, and that's its biggest contribution.
Yeah, there is a lot of noise. There's totally this, and it's all become, a lot of it, not all of it, has been consumer, it commodified now. It's another thing that the West is very good at, is learning from other countries, and then they commodify it. I can take yoga as one example. Yoga, as you know, came out of the practice of yoga. First, it's not all hatha yoga, right? It's the whole body. It's mind and body. And spirit. And it came out of India, and now it's so commodified. Everyone can tell you, oh, we do, all this kind of yoga and power yoga and this yoga. And it's like, how do you go through the weeds to really find out, as you say, what is authentic? It's a difficult challenge. I'm not sure that I would frame that question the same way, like authentic, because I would frame it as like, what are they really trying to help me, or are they just trying to get my cash out of my pocket? And so maybe that's what you mean by authentic.
Being mindful.
Yeah, but it is, I would say, for someone that is trying to get well, and there's so much options available in the wellness world, is tune in, number one. Are they really, trying to get just to your dollars? You just, it's another product that you're buying? Or are they really looking at, can I be well? And I'm having a hard time answering that question. Yeah, but there's a lot of, just everything. That's the problem with our world is everything gets commodified. Everything does. Spirituality does. And wellness is right in there with it. So one has to just start asking a lot of good questions and really sitting with themselves and saying, what do I really need? What does my body need? What does my mind need? And then also not just with themselves, but connecting with others and having conversation. And what would you say, Deen?
Well, your point of commodification is a very important point. You know why? Because our consumer culture, it's based on commodification and consumption. And what happens as we commodify, we create the division between us and them, but this and that, and eventually we become commodities ourselves. And Noam Chomsky, for example, showed us, what it does to us, as commodified beings, And so when everything is commodified, including ourselves, then it's nothing but consumption. And that doesn't lead us to that idea of authenticity or mindfulness to find out who we are and who the others are and how we can connect, That's what.
It's kind of like when you're really in search of connecting with someone that can be a teacher to you, right? Or what, I could use that example of seeking out someone because that person's going to give you some valuable lessons in life. And so one has to do the searching themselves, but they have to know a little bit about what I want. And so that's what I was talking about, like going inside and finding out, what do you really want?
Right.
What does this spirit inside, is it really seeking for? And that's the quietness that can bring you that slowing down and really listening. It's that listening part. So one has to do that and get rid of a lot of the noise that's around. Just go, okay, I don't need to pay attention to this, because the truth is really within you. You have that truth. And so if you can tap into it, and then those individuals or that, whatever that experience is, you'll slowly get there. Mm-hmm. You'll slowly make that connection. But there's those little steps you have to take. Right. And just knowing and also understanding someone, you can see commodification. You can see that they're really trying to sell you something. Some people are very blatant with it, right?
But this constant outwardly search without looking inside in ourselves, what happens, it is this, what we call this guru syndrome. Looking for some guru somewhere as if they have the truth, we don't have it, But we have to realize the idea of a guru. How do you spell guru? G-U-R-U. G, you are you. That's it. That's a guru. Yeah. We're our guru, so.
But we are our own guru, right. But we only find that out through the solitude and everything. But I think that others can help us find that out. And that's the true guru. Right. That's the true teacher, is someone that can reflect back to you, that you can see that you are your own teacher.
G-U-R-U.
Yeah. It's the rewiring, right? That we've all been affected by the times we live in, the environment we live in. And so, how do we rewire? It's almost like you kind of throw out the wires for a while and get rid, empty out, and then just be in the natural world
but we tend to
be with each
throw
other.
away the bath water with the baby itself. That's us, So we know how to.
Yeah.
It's a very broad and complex vision, but at the base it's quite simple. Pax Natura is an exemplary institute. It's an exemplary organization that tells us that when we connect with nature in the right way, we connect with ourselves. and you bring the whole world together. Because the direction we are going by destroying nature, it's going to destroy all of us, for short-term gain, We are losing the bigger picture, which is us and our natural world, So our natural world is our biggest prized thing around us. We cannot heal ourselves unless we are immersed in nature and understand and appreciate nature. And that's what we are forgetting. It's the idea of conquest and conquering and exploiting nature for our own benefit satisfaction. And that's creating the division that we have been talking about, And Pax Natura is the most vital organization, institute right now, foundation that shows us that you cannot go that way. It has the potential of saving the world. It also brings the whole world together, the southern world with the northern world, And because of this idea of Western consumption in terms of maximizing profit, maximizing production and all that, that is creating this gulf, between us and them. And eventually it comes to us. Because when the world is burning, quote unquote, then even though the fire is far away now, we think that, well, it's their problem without realizing that's the way we live, that's causing the fire over there. Eventually it's going to come to us. So in a vast ocean of poverty, deprivation, and waste, no island is safe. It's going to engulf all the islands. The island that we believe is ours, that's so safe, We have created it. It's going to come to us. And Pax Natura gives us that direction to see that don't be so conceited to believe that we have the answer to the whole world, Look at the other countries, what they're doing. Learn from them and be humble and get to see what they're doing and try to practice that yourselves, And that's what the Pax project has been. It started that way in Costa Rica, and in Mexico it's doing the exact same thing to show resisting to the Western destructive and consumptive, force that's coming in and destroying their culture, especially their tradition and most importantly the identity, that has to be reversed. So in that sense, we are still living in a colonial imperial world, because the colonial imperial world, the first thing it did was to destroy the identity of the countries it tried to dominate, in the southern world especially, the poor countries and all that, for its own exploitation and richness, So this identity has to be brought back. So we all feel totally full and replenished together. Because unless we can join hands and rejoice in our identity for who we are and what we are, we cannot survive as a connected whole world, And nature is our guide in that. We have to appreciate nature. It's Mother Nature, and everything is earthbound, along with all these creatures, big and small. And so it's mindfulness. In that sense, it's very much of a Buddhist idea, something that Donna is talking about, mindfulness. And we have to learn from others, Otherwise, there's always that separation. And in a vast world of deprivation, no island is safe. Eventually, it comes to us. We don't realize that, but when you do, it may be too late at the time, And fortunately, Pax Natura is there to show us before it gets too late. Wake up and see what's happening. So that's his biggest contribution,
And I think one of the ways, and this kind of leads into the vision that I would like to see Pax Natura take, is to definitely get more young people involved in the organization and making those connections with the young people, because they have a lot of just, they're so vibrant, first of all, and they're open to looking at the world slightly different than older people are, because older people can have that tendency to get kind of stuck in their ways because they've done it so many times that way. So young people gives us not only freshness, but just a different way of looking. And with that thinking of young people, also getting people involved from other parts of the world, so expanding it a little bit more. Pax Natura has done a lot of work in, the South America and the global South, but let's take it to, Africa. Let's see what people are doing in Africa. I'm sure they're doing marvelous and wonderful things, and put a spotlight on some of those workings that are happening. And and keep making those connections and keeping it vibrant with the young people and their ideas and their openness.
But speaking about young people, the Pax is in that direction already. It has some extremely vibrant, active, enthusiastic young folks with brilliant ideas and brilliant achievements on the board and all that. And it's starting with the global South in this part of the hemisphere, but eventually it has the potential to go in the other parts, Africa. But if it tries to do all of those things at the same time together, that will be too big a project.
Right, and just little projects. Like one thing that Pax has done is the Radio Natura, and you'll learn more about that from Jordan. And with that, there are also others that are involved in Radio Natura from other parts, younger people that are not just from the U.S. So, and that again brings in other ideas, different perspectives.
From Asia and from other places to Africa. Yeah.
So making it broader, getting it broader without diluting the message of Pax, which is really peace with nature, and not being confrontational and not making nature just a resource to exploit.
Right, and Pax is moving in that direction already. It knows that that's the future direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that a wrap.